The IFCA International Compliance Congress, the 2021 version, and I am about to introduce you to our first panel for a very important discussion that I think is going to set the scene for the next 4 days. But before that, I just want to remind you that apart from all the learning that we are going to have over the next couple of days, we also want to have a little bit of fun, and I would like you, if you weren't with me for the introduction, to share a picture that best represents your country in the chat box. I will announce the winner at the end of the day, and the winner will receive a welcome Amazon voucher. Now, let's get on to our first panel discussion. And we're asking, as I said a little earlier, this very simple question, but deep in meaning and multi-layered. Is compliance enough? We're going to unpack the compliance debate and the need for ethics integration. And we have assembled for you a world-class panel here. First of all, the moderator is Jose Luis Fernandez. He is a doctor of philosophy and holds the CESCOM compliance certification and is also an accredited member of the Internationally Certified Compliance Professional, ICCP, recognized by IFCA. He's a legal expert in compliance, certified by the Spanish Association of Compliance, ASCOM, an ordinary professor at the Faculty of Business Administration and Economics, ICADE, at the University Pontificia Comillas, and has been head of the Iberdrola Chair of Economics Business Ethics since 2003. Between 1993 and 2007, he was president of EBEN in Spain. I'm going to hand over to Jose Luis Fernandez for him to introduce the rest of his panel. Sir, it's a great pleasure to see you again, and a very warm welcome.
Thank you very much. Yes, it is a pleasure for me and a real honor to moderate this first panel within the framework of the IFCA 21st Congress. The three speakers whose name appear on the screen will take the floor immediately. Each of them will have no more than 9 minutes at most to share with the audience little more than a statement of some of the intuitions that the title of this panel suggests to them. However, given their experience and the extraordinary professional profile they have, I'm sure that they will be able to provide us with great added value and give us food for thought on the theme that presides over this first roundtable of the Congress. When some of my students ask me to accompany them on their research adventure, especially when it comes to writing a doctoral thesis, I always tell them the same thing. Don't be in a hurry to start anything until you have been able to formulate a powerful research question. A question for which there is not yet a fully satisfactory answer, and to whose resolution it is worth the time and effort required to write a doctoral thesis. And here, this afternoon, we have an extremely very good question posed at the start of the Congress. Is compliance enough? As a starting hypothesis, a first provisional answer to the question of whether compliance is enough could be substantiated with the terse verb tense that could answer with the laconic "it depends." Compliance is certainly sufficient for some things and absolutely insufficient for others. It is good for guaranteeing the firm ground of legality, but once this minimum is assured, it is still possible to think of a progressive advance towards higher and more challenging goals that point to a ceiling that is not prefixed in advance, but always open to creative innovation. Therefore, although compliance with legality in itself is very laudable and a necessary condition for organizational success, It might not, however, be a sufficient condition, nor, of course, the maximum to which we should aspire. The key to the answer undoubtedly takes us beyond the questions and leads us to an inquiry into the specific mission of each company. In this respect, it must be said that the purpose, as the ultimate goal and intrinsic good that gives meaning and direction to organizational activity, is immediately linked to the ethical dimension of the company and its management. And ethics understood not only as the will to avoid doing wrong, in keeping with the well-known principle of non-maleficence, lapidarily formulated in the Hippocratic primum non nocere, firstly, do not harm, but a more ambitious ethics closer to moral philosophy, an exercise of axiological reflection that seeks to discover and creatively and innovatively propose paths, activities, and business models that add value, not only economic value, but also the ecological and social ones, to the world, and that contribute to the resolution of some of the serious problems that humanity as a whole has to face in this second decade of the 21st century, like smart mobility, for instance. To help us in the task of outlining some of the facets of the question that serves as the panel's motto, we have three distinguished speakers, each of whom, as we have already said, will have 9 minutes for their initial intervention. This will leave a further 9 minutes to address, if necessary, any concerns from the audience. The first in speaking will be Song Wade. Song Wade, the floor is yours. Okay. As we are having some problems with the echo, I suggest that our next speaker will take the floor. So, Irina, please, could you talk to us?
Yes, good day, colleagues. I'm very grateful for the organization of this Compliant Congress and an opportunity to talk and an opportunity to share with my presentation. I'm trying to do this now. Can you see it? I hope. Can you see this presentation?
Yes. Okay. Go ahead.
So, first of all, I would like to say about the definitions that we also use when we are talking about the compliance. And these definitions now we have in a new standard, ISO 37301, and compliance management systems and requirements with guidance for use. And I would like to say that we also think about the compliance about like a two-faced yarns, because we have two parts of compliance. One part is culture and ethics, and another part is the control functions to comply with laws, standards, and so on. So it's quite difficult to be together with two parts, to be one in one part and another part together. So we need some definitions that globally in international meaning will be the same for us. So these standards is for definitions and for understanding what is the compliance function is and what is compliance management systems. First of all, I must say that compliance is meeting all the organization compliance obligations, and we see that organization can voluntarily chooses to comply with. So to comply with ethics, for example. And we see that compliance culture is values, ethics, beliefs, and conduct that exist throughout an organization. So compliance is to produce behavioral norms in its sense. and the definitions of conduct. So we can use international definitions of the compliance, and that will be easier to talk between the organization, between the markets, between the regulators all over the world. Next thoughts is about the motivation to make the company be more compliant, or the motivation of the company employees behavior. And in this case, I can say that maybe we need to use soft motivation that we can see in such very interesting book as Nudge. And so sometimes this soft motivation for the employees is a very nice instrument for compliance officers to use. And the next thing that Jose is talking about the values and about the mission and about how to transform culture from the goal as make sufficient profit to the goal to be safe customers and to the goal to be service for society. Because the mission of an organization, I agree with Jose, is a very important thing, because when we make profit, it's not to be safe for customers and not to be to save to the society. Of course, a very nice thing when the organization or the company save to the society. And we see now ESG risks that we are talking about is about ecology, about the society, about the social risk and governance. And so this is factors is very important now in our green economics and all those cases and all those goals that a lot of governments make the first goals for the economics. So the next thought is about what our regulator and what about our international organization of regulator give us as an instrument to combat misconduct. And in April of 2018, we see the Financial Stability Board gave us such an instrument as a strengthening governance framework to mitigate the misconduct risk, a toolkit for firms and supervisors. And we see that one of the instruments is standards and code of behavior. And the best example of ethics integration, I think, is the Forex Global Code, because now we see more than 1,000 entities in global index of public registers and about 605 central banks in this register. And we see that ethical principles are transforming to the real behavior procedures in this code. And this is a good example and good instrument for global markets, in this case, Forex markets, as an instrument how to integrate the ethics all over the world. And the next thought is about the culture and conduct boards. We see that in 2019, in Singapore and Ireland, we see a new board, so-called Culture or Conduct Board. And this is a good trend, I think, in the world to make such associations or new body, which is improving the culture in one country, and maybe in the future we will have such culture and conduct board all over the world, as we have, for example, the Forex Global Committee, when we see for those members who signed the statement of commitment for Forex Global Code, the members of Forex Global Committee discussing the problems of implementation of this ethical principle in Forex global market. And so I think it's a very good trend. Maybe in future we will see such culture conduct board in Europe, for example, or maybe in a global matter. So thank you very much. This is my thoughts about what is a compliance and compliance enough or not. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Irina. Thank you for being here. I don't know if Song is already able to talk without echo. Song? Wayne?
Not yet.
Not yet?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, perfectly.
Well, I will go with this then if there's no echo.
No
Uh,
echo at all. Go
thank
ahead.
you, thank you, and sorry for the clouds on the line from Dublin. Um, I will go without. You have my main slide there. Thank you very much. I think as regards compliance, well, what is compliance? And how have we done against the traditional view and structure of compliance? We've spoken about integrating ethics and maybe going towards behavior and attitudes rather than straight compliance with codes. And what is needed maybe to go from here to there. And I think in particular, I'd just like to focus on some good lessons from something dreadful being COVID-19 for the last 18 months. But there have been some serious lessons which have come from there, which may be transportable into our compliance function as we go forward. So I suppose we should just reflect on some of the thoughts that we've had just already as regards what compliance is. It can be very hard law, it can be soft law or regulation, it can be codes, voluntary or mandatory. It's across a whole range of topics, from the customer to the prudential to data to cyber and to corruption, anti-corruption and bribery and anti-money laundering. And in many institutions, maybe there's not one whole function managing all of that. And I think that is a serious challenge for us all in the future. How have we performed against it? Well, I think maybe a pass at the very best, a distinction sometimes in exam terms, but there have been so many failures. We had a major financial crisis. People suffered dreadful hardship. And the guilty have stayed guilty and mostly not been punished, we might say. And people have stopped trusting the financial services companies, and blame has been to the fore. So I think in overall terms, we can't say it has done very well. And I think one of the, it's done extraordinarily well in terms of what it has prevented. And we don't know all the things that it's prevented. We do know previous sins aren't those sins that are committed anymore. But it's just, I suppose, the to use a sporting analogy, the football match has moved into a different place on the pitch, maybe. But trust, to lose the trust of our customers, I think trust is what we sell, no matter what business we're in. And I think we are also facing into a situation where the world is changing so much with fintech, with all of the disruptors, with cyber risk, with the expectations of a younger generation of how their data will be used, but also the high standards and expectations that they have of organizations to whom they trust their data and their business. And that means that we have to collaborate with our colleagues in designing our products and in designing how we reach out to customers. We need different skills for this from what we've had before. And we need a better, maybe, profile and stronger profile and power than we have had to date. If I may say, as a personal observation, I think risk management became the successor to, say, the market in terms of what a regulator thinks might be the solution to all evils. It was the market. The market would solve everything. And we saw how accurate that was not when we had a financial crisis. And then risk was going to cure everything, risk management. But that looks at things in a very specific way. And if I could just single out maybe customer interest, risk management in terms of conduct is so often about protecting the company against the customer's actions. I think the customer protection is actually us trying to protect the customer against the company's actions, and ensuring that we have them empowered and enabled to understand the products we are selling to them, and that we are meeting their needs. We heard many stories in the crisis where the companies, the boards, didn't even understand the products they were selling, and yet we were hostile, I suppose, in court cases against customers, because they didn't understand. I suggest quite often we didn't understand either. So that there's a major challenge, I suppose, to doing something differently. So in integration of ethics to take us beyond compliance, and yes, we should go beyond pure compliance, because compliance isn't enough, really. because what happens when it's so complex, it's so burdensome and deep, so much energy goes into finding ways to go around it, or to not offend it, rather than to go beyond it maybe and achieve common goals. So common goals, I think, is where it really should be. Values, courage, honesty, integrity, old-fashioned things like that. They go back thousands of years, but they're still relevant. And now we have sustainability and climate change and trying to save the planet. And giving customers power over their own data, their own information, and working with them really almost in the terms of the product. But that requires different skills. It requires an agreement that we should have these values, common values, and we should empower our managers to set targets for all of our people to meet those values, help them when they don't, but not leave them on their own to deliver them. And then we might start. And I think we have seen, Irina mentioned that Banking and Culture Board in Ireland. That is a hopeful thing. The one thing that I would say about that is, and it is only a stepping stone, is that it is controlled by the banks. And so this, it's a really good departure, but it is something where next level, you would say, much more public interest. It wouldn't have happened if the banks hadn't pulled together to do it. That's the reality. But now we should go to the next level, because conflicts of interest are so important in dealing with these things, and in agreeing what a common set of values is. We don't have a common view of what maybe the customer is or how we should protect the customer. We need to do that. We need to work together to do it. And that means giving compliance access to product design, having a voice in the design of the product, not just in signing off on the terms and conditions. How can we do that if we don't understand what the product was aimed for? And we need our boards to be confident and demanding enough to know, because I think the goal for the board, the goal for compliance has to be, do we give the board the information to know, are we compliant, or if we aren't, or if there are gaps, and do they know all of the areas that they should know? Are we reporting on everything, even telling them, we have not checked this, we have not checked that. This is not what we look at. When we say we look after the customer, we mean it in these terms, that we've done no evil to the customer. It doesn't mean we've acted in their best interest. For example, that's an extreme example. So I think we need to actually set high standards, give power, give resources to the compliance function. And I think in terms of just finally, just to talk about maybe just quick lessons from COVID-19. Rules and evidence and facts and evidence were back in fashion in COVID-19. They had gone out of fashion before that. We've been dealing with real fears, life and death fears, really true issues for consideration. And so it enabled us to make clear priorities on problems and potential solutions and required actions, and bringing the public along with us, collaboration and innovation. In order to innovate, we have to collaborate. And that's what happened with COVID-19. We needed to have a clear understanding of problems, where the solutions might be, who we needed to talk to, what experts we needed to engage, and forcefully joining together to do that. So stakeholder management was critical. Public trust was absolutely critical. And leadership needed to be seen as courageous and decisive, inclusive. That's what we've missed, I think, in terms of compliance at times. Compliance itself has been excluded from decision-making when it shouldn't have been. Caring, open and honest and courageous. And the carrot and the stick. Compliance came back into fashion, but it'll be going out of fashion quite quick as well, in terms of vaccinations, in terms of testing and all the rest of it. So compliance fatigue is a feature and it's a risk, but we have to actually change the way we deliver our message and change the message and go away keep with the rules, keep with the discipline, but look for reward and recognition. It's not just outlawing incentives to do bad. We have to really recognize those things which prevent people from doing good. If they don't get recognized for spending a lot of time on a call with a customer, it's serving the customer's needs. Maybe it didn't result in a sale, so the advisor doesn't get recognition. That's wrong. That customer will probably come back again because they've been spoken to truthfully and honestly and helped. So I think we need to look at those incentives and disincentives. We need to give power back to compliance. We need to encourage collaboration. And I think we would do well to actually look at all of the lessons from COVID-19 and how that's been handled across the world and say, these are things we can learn from here. That's as much as I wanted to say, and I hope I haven't taken too much time, and I'm so sorry for the echo chamber from which I spoke at the start. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you, Sam, for your stimulating intervention. So our last speaker is Dimitri Nikitin. Please go ahead, Dimitri, whenever you want.
Hello, can you hear me well?
Yes, we can hear you perfectly. Okay. Go ahead.
So first of all, I would like to thank all organizers and sponsors for giving an opportunity to connect with international compliance professionals and share knowledge. I'm on vacation now, and it's a lot of honor for me to make my presentation here. Before I start, I have to make some short formal disclaimer that any views, thoughts, and opinions expressed in my short speech belong solely to myself and not necessarily to my employer, organization, committee, or other group of individuals. Any views, thoughts, and opinions expressed in my presentation below may differ from the views of government bodies and is compliance enough? I often hear that society will chop off corruption and other financial crimes, provided that everybody complies with applicable laws. However, there is something else that should be taken into account. This something else is values and what influences them. It's obvious that we now live in times of money society. A Russian economist, Professor Valentin Katasonov, reckons money society has been existing for 1,000 years in different forms and formations. It could be described as listed below. First, a lion's share of people pursue personal enrichment goals. This personal enrichment becomes a continuous and endless process. As a result, people's values change significantly, aiming at personal enrichment. Values change in turn leads to changes in behavior. Mutual help and cooperation are being replaced by competition and profit seeking. For many people, the goal of enrichment starts to justify its means. These people to make money. Ancient philosopher Aristotle called this type of society like chrematism. Chrematism is a type of activity that differs from economic activity. Other ancient philosopher, Xenophon, defined economic activity as a creating activity aimed at satisfying people's needs. Chrematism, according to Aristotle, means an art of enrichment and making money and has no relation to satisfying people's needs. That's really the reason corruption and other financial crimes exist and will exist every time, despite compliance efforts. Fraud, corruption, tax evasion, money laundering, and other financial crimes have become an integral part of money society as they are driven by current people's values. For example, top managers could commit financial statement fraud because they are interested in getting personal bonuses for enrichment. And these personal bonuses, in turn, depend on financial statements figures such as revenue or sales, net profit, earnings per share, etc. I think a lot of people know about Enron and WorldCom examples, and we don't have to comment on this. Additionally, as compliance focuses on abiding by the law, it doesn't usually deal with values, unfortunately. Since it doesn't deal with values, its capacity to change people's behavior is strictly limited. In order to change people's behavior, we need to change their values first of all. And this is not only about compliance, this is mainly about ethics. Mr. Karl Marx stated in his theory that social and economic structure of the society prevails all other aspects, including mentality and values. Marx calls this basis, and all other aspects he calls superstructure. However, in order to answer our initial question, we should revise Marx's theory and make a swap. So basis and superstructure interchange. As a result, we shall discuss social and moral formations, not just social and economic formations on macro level. This illustrates the reason why just compliance is not enough and give us a lot of things to rethink. Thank you very much. I think it's my short presentation expresses my opinion on this question.
Thank you very much, Dimitri. So we have some time for questions and answers if necessary. I don't know if anyone is in charge of sending the reactions or the questions from the audience. Yeah.
Jose, thank you very much indeed. And I'm going to start with one question that we have received, and this will be for the entire panel. It was our first speaker who I think referred to this concept called soft motivation. Could the panel engage on that a little bit more? What is soft motivation, and how does it specifically apply to engendering more adherence to general principles of compliance?
If no one of my colleagues want to react, I will say that in my view, motivation is motivation. I can't distinguish between soft or hard. Deliberation and clearly thought and options for values are always behind the motivation. But once one is motivated, can do anything that he proposed or she proposed to do. In this context, perhaps the small or the little motivation is to do the good thing, and the strong one will be to avoid the punishment. This is the pre-conventional way of motivate. I think that we have a long road to do when we are beyond the conventionalism and go to principles and to purpose and to values as the motivators. I don't know if I am answering the question exactly, but this is my reaction to the question. Thank you.
Okay, I'm not seeing any of our other panel members wanting to wade in on that, so let me get on to the next question. This comes from David.
Irina wants to.
Irina, off you go. I didn't see you. Go ahead.
Thank you very much. I just think that soft motivation is a little bit another thing, because when you have an organization or company that makes money, you have only one motivation: to make money by yourself. So your salary is your motivation when you are working. I was talking about the soft motivation in the culture manner, when you have circumstances, when you can create something new or to make yourself more perfect, when you have the goals of organization in the same manner, you will see the soft motivation for yourself, not only to make money for your family, for yourself, but to make something new, to create something new, to be a more creative person, more perfect, more consciousness. And in this case, when the goals of your company, of your organization are the same with your own personal goals, this is some kind of a soft motivation. So your values and your mission is the same as the values and mission of organization. In this combination, we see the soft motivation for the people. And this is a fundamental thing, I think, for the culture. Because if you have not the same values, not the same goals, and only one thing you are going to do in your organization is to make money, to get the salary, this is not the soft motivation. Because the soft motivation and the same ethics and the same goals for yourself. So when employees and the top management are in the same command, and they have the same values and the same mission and the same goals, and the goals are more social, not the profitable, that will be the soft motivation for the people. I think so. Thank you very much.
Thank you indeed. Jose, any of your other panel members want to comment on that?
Go ahead, Sam. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Jose. Yes, Jeremy, just what I'd like to add to what Irina says, because I think self-motivation is very much linked to understanding a common purpose. And if you think in terms of customer, it can sometimes help. If it is my job to retain customers, I might think that I have to keep them on our books in the exact same product because anything else would look bad against me. But maybe in a more enlightened organization, we can understand that actually selling or changing the product to meet a customer's changed needs. And again, COVID was a good example of this. So it mightn't be profitable for the company in the short term, but it might certainly be beneficial for the company in the long term, because you're holding on to your customer, and your customer will remember, and this is proven. There's empirical evidence for this. The customer will stay and come back, because the product they know that you didn't want to sell them, they needed to buy or needed to change to, because their circumstances have changed. And if we get our staff as well to see things differently, that well, you know, my targets might be on retention on these kind of products right now, or to sell these products because these are the most profitable. But I'm empowered to actually make a decision to meet a customer's needs. That can become dynamic, and you can have a domino effect. Enlightened self-interest, broader interest in what the company's goals are, soft motivation. I'm with Irina. These are labels for something which goes beyond pure compliance. Sorry, I hope that makes sense.
Thank you very much indeed. And to our chairperson, we've got about 4 minutes left in the session. And I would like your panel, sir, to look at this question from David Franco, who writes, compliance generally comes from the legal environment teams made up, he says, of specialized compliance attorneys. What would the recommendation be for an update of thematic profiles? In other words, an economist, auditors, IT specialists, etc., etc. Does your team have a view on perhaps what the new compliance professional should look like?
In my view, it is not necessary to come from the engineering or from law or from business. I think people who is in the second part, in the compliance, second line of defense, must to know well the business, This is for me much more important condition that have studied in law or something, to know the business and the industry.
And anybody else on the panel?
Sam.
Thanks, Jose. Just I just could not agree more with Jose on that one. Know the business is absolutely vital, and also know the customer. I am always impressed by compliance professionals who have worked, as we say, on the phones or on the sales process. It gives a particularly important dimension, and it's usable right across the business. So those two, I'd say.
All right. Anybody else in the panel? I think that's it. Jose, at this point then, I am going to thank you and your august panel members for joining us today. It's been most enlightening and most informative. Jose Luis Fernandez, along with Irina Katyasheva, also Sean Wade and Dmitry Natikin, thank you very much for joining us for our opening panel discussion on this 2021 IFCA International Compliance Congress. In just a moment, I'm going to segue straight into our next panel conversation, the compliance officer as a leading role in organizations. What is that leading role, and how is the challenge, how is the discipline, how is the dynamic, how is the paradigm changed as far as they are concerned? Just a reminder that all of our live sessions will be rebroadcast. The session with our three speakers from live session 1 will be broadcast today at Universal Standard Time, 1500 hours. So in just a moment, we'll segue into our second panel discussion here at the Congress.